my friend, and welcome back. Today, I would like to share something, and this has been a fairly recent development, and I just wanted to share it because it has really just made such a difference for my internal world, and I think that that is really, really important right now. So, what I wanted to share, and I've kind of briefly touched on this before, but I don't think so, not really in this way. So, what I want to share is my relationship with the divine has changed. And it has changed in kind of a drastic way. And so, before this change, I obviously was a very spiritual person and, very into my faith. And, the vid drove me even deeper into my faith. But it always just kind of felt like, I would reach out to the divine, or, that I would go back to my faith and remembering, that everything is working out perfectly and the way it's supposed to happen. So this shift for me, the difference for me, and this has come, I've mentioned this book multiple times before, but this has really come and been reinforced through the Jesus Calling book. It's called Jesus Calling, and it's, a daily book with daily kind of meditations. And what has shifted for me is that now I don't feel as much like I'm reaching out to the divine in specific instances. I feel the presence of the divine constantly within my heart. I feel and I believe and I know how much the divine is here for me every single second of every single day. And it is never that, and I never thought this before, but it's just been it's really sunk in for me. God, the divine, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is not coming and going, and is not there when you want to reach out. The divine is there no matter what. Whether you believe it, whether you want to believe it, whether you don't believe it, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you're reaching out to the divine or not, God is always there for you no matter what. It is the one constant that is in your life. And for all intents and purposes, He resides in your heart. And that is something that I always knew, but I never really felt it. And I have felt that shift within myself to that feeling. And one of the things that I have been kind of reinforcing into my life lately, and I've been bringing it into every single second of my life of, whenever I can, or whenever something is a little trying or whatever it is, anytime, every time, I tell myself to keep my eyes on God, to keep my eyes on the divine. And by doing that, I am reminding myself and reinforcing within myself that the divine not only lives within me, but the divine's presence is always here. And it never goes anywhere. It never wavers. And when you are having the toughest time, when you are struggling the most, that is when the divine's presence is strongest. That is when you can choose to feel the divine's presence strongest, because actually the divine's presence isn't really there more in sometimes and not in the others. It is actually just a constant, and it is always, that strong presence constantly. But a lot of times when we are going through hard times or we are struggling, I'm sure have heard a lot of people have found God when they are going through their darkest times. And that is because when life brings you to your knees, a lot of times you are left with no other choice than to turn to the divine. And it doesn't even have to be a conscious turning. A lot of times, sometimes when we are squeezed so hard and we are brought to our knees, is when you are able to clear enough noise to hear how strong the divine's presence is and to feel how strong it is. So it isn't necessarily that like God is like, oh, they're going through hard times, I'm going to be there even more. Like, yes, God is there for us, and God's light does shine brightest in darkest times, but that doesn't mean that that light is any dark, any brighter or any dimmer at any other time. It's just when we as humans are brought to the darkest times, that is when we are able to see the divine's light shining so bright. But when we are in happier times or in lighter times, it doesn't mean that the divine's presence is any less there. The divine doesn't dim its light. It's like, okay, they're having a good time, so, we're going to step back a little bit. That's not really what happens. It's just that when we are in lighter times, it can just seem like the divine's light is not that bright. But in reality, it is the same amount of brightness as it is when you are in dark times. It's just a matter of clearing the noise. And I don't know why exactly, but yes, dark times clear the noise and clear the path. I think it's actually like a survival mechanism I think there's probably a physiological reason for this, that when we are struggling the most is when the path to the divine is the clearest. And I think the reason why I feel like that is a survival mechanism is because in those times is when we need something to cling to the most. And I think that our subconscious, our conscious even knows that. So we don't even have to ask when we're in dark times. You can, of course, surrender to God always. But a lot of times, people that have never had a thought of God before go through really dark times, and then all of a sudden, it's literally like a light switch goes off, and they find God, and they know that that is the path. I used to always not understand what it meant to say when they said, prepare your heart for the way of the Lord. I never really understood that, and I've been hearing that being tossed around a lot because, whatever, we're in crazy times, we're in dark times, whatever you want to call it, like uncertain times, whatever it is. And I kept hearing, prepare your heart, prepare your heart. And I never really understood what that meant. I'm like, do the inner work, be compassionate, be a good person. Yes, it is all of those things, but now I truly understand. I think that preparing your heart means finding God within your heart and feeling that everlasting presence and that unconditional love of the Lord all the time, not just when you need it most, when you need it a little bit, or when you don't even need it at all, when you're going through joy. Yes, like gratitude is what helps you kind of anchor you to the Lord, but keep your eyes on God even when times are good, even when something joyous happens. When you keep your eyes on good, that joy amplifies within you. And understand that you're not going outside to God. You are not reaching up and above somewhere that you are not. God is living within you every second of every day, and you can't shake it. No matter what, you cannot get rid of the God that lives within you, because that is your essence. We are, in essence, all divine beings. So you cannot shake the Lord no matter what you do. And reminder, we are all children of God. Every single one of us. There is not one person or thing or animal that is left out from this. even the dark energy is cut from the divine cloth. So let's not forget that we are all children of God, and it's not a seeking without, it is within. That's why I'm saying prepare your heart, because where is your heart? Your heart is within you. Your heart is in your center. So to me, my interpretation of preparing your heart was finding God in that way, feeling the divine presence all of the time, reminding myself to keep my eyes on God. And the reason for that, why I feel that is preparing your heart, is because the question I always wanted to ask is, for what? Prepare your heart for what? What I always want to know, what's happening? Are the zombies coming? Is everything going to collapse? Is it not going to be that bad? The reality is we actually don't know what's coming. And I hope that it is better and easier than could be expected for the evolution of humanity. However, the reality is we don't know how it's going to play out. And there's actually not a set way that it's going to play out, that we just don't know. We're shifting between timelines, and there are many infinite possibilities of what could happen right now. But the way that we move forward in this uncertainty is within the certainty of the Lord, of the universe, of the divine, of God. That is what, to me, preparing your heart means. Because when you prepare your heart and you know with every fiber of your being that the divine never leaves you, and that you can always turn to the divine no matter what is happening, and the divine is there to love you and guide you through whatever happens, and that you have the faith that the Lord has prepared you, and that you will be prepared to go through anything that can happen. That faith of knowing that you will be guided and loved and protected, and you have the promise of everlasting life in the Lord. We are everlasting, immortal, spiritual beings. That, to me, is preparing your heart. Because no matter what happens, if frogs start to fall from the sky, I know that the divine will be with me to guide me through navigating what that means. So that is what I wanted to share today, and I just felt like I just had to share it because it's felt so good for me. Like I said, this is fairly recent, in the last, 2 months. I just wanted to share that because I just feel like it was so important and necessary right now, and I want to encourage you to prepare your heart in your own unique way, and to find the Lord that lives within you all the time. It's never outside of you, never. So, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Anne, and I hope to see you next time.